Hello and welcome to Celtic Down Under. My name is Laura and we are joined by Liam for yet another World Cup preview, this time Poland. Liam, how you doing?
Good. Poland is one of the few countries at this tournament that I don't actually have a shirt for, so I've gone for a Barcelona number today.
That's correct,
Um,
guys. He sees fit to have a Saudi Arabia shirt, but not a Poland one. Let's not go into that.
in my defence, I used to have a Poland shirt, and I remember once I was out at a Celtic game with my dad, and we were in a bar before the match,
Mm-hmm.
and this drunk Celtic fan came up to me and said, friendly enough but kind of aggressive, son, why Poland? Quick as you like, my dad went, the Pope's Polish. He was like, all right, no bother.
I mean, I don't know what's worse about that. The fact that the guy questioned your wearing of the Poland shirt, or the fact that he was satisfied with the fact that the Pope's Polish. Uh, anyway,
Yeah.
let's crack on. We've got Poland. We will get to the main man, the star man who's inspired your shirt today, Robert Lewandowski. We will do that. But before we do, let's look at Poland's qualifying fixtures, or qualifying table, we should say, and just see how they got to the World Cup. Um, you know, I actually forgot, and this happens when you're researching this. I forgot exactly who was in their group, but let's not forget they had England in their group, who
Mm.
came out on top of them by 6 points. But then, thankfully, in the playoff, they got past Russia because of obvious current world events, and then knocked Sweden out to ensure that Zlatan, had he been fit, would potentially definitely miss his last World Cup. So not an insignificant list of nations there that are missing out because Poland have made it. What do you make of their road to the World Cup and the fact that they are there at all?
Well, also, if you look, Hungary are in that group as well, and as recent form has shown, they're no mugs either. So
Mm-hmm.
that's actually one of the toughest, I think, most evenly balanced groups in qualifying, and Poland
Don't
came through
say
it.
don't.
So,
England came top. What are you doing?
aye, well balanced with mediocrity. That's the point I'm coming to. Uh, there is no outstanding team in that group, which is why England topped it.
Well, exactly. I'm just trying to figure out here what their history at the World Cup. Let me see if I can just pull that up for you guys, because it's going to be an interesting view, I have to say. Um, they are a team that are relatively persistent at the World Cup, and bearing in mind, I've said it in every video so far, pretty much, compared to Scotland, any team is persistent at the World Cup. But I mean, look at that. They got a third place finish in 1974 in Germany, another third place finish in 1982 at Spain. Now, as much as I say history doesn't have too much of a bearing on current day, as far as World Cup pedigree goes, they are not also runs in some senses. Is that me being too hyperbolic, or do you think they should be getting more respect than they perhaps do?
I mean, let's not forget that the team from Escape to Victory had two Poles in it. I
Fair,
can't remember who
fair.
they were, but there were two Polish footballers who were in that team. And I can't, for the life of me, can't remember who they were, but they're yeah. Alongside Bobby Moore, Michael Caine, and the greatest of all goalkeepers, Sylvester Stallone, you had a couple of Polish players there. So yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I
but
don't know what to say about that, to be honest. I mean, the third place finishes um are certainly to be taken into consideration, but when you look at that, I mean, they had to play 7 games to get those third place finishes, but they haven't perhaps qualified, certainly as recently as they might have done. They didn't qualify for any of the World Cups in the 90s. They qualified consecutively for 2002 and 2006, but couldn't get beyond the group stage. And then their only other appearance at the World Cup after that was 2018 in Russia at the group stage.
mm,
Um, one of those situations where it's possibly a shame that a player of Robert Lewandowski's particular skill hasn't been able to shine at that top seat of world football as many times as he might have liked. What do you see his impact being, given that, like so many other greats, he's perhaps beyond his prime now?
I think it's very unfortunate. I think you've got like a kind of a George Best, Ryan Giggs type scenario there. A phenomenal player, but unfortunately surrounded by a very ordinary national team.
Mm-hmm.
Poland are that wee bit better traditionally than Northern Ireland or Wales have been. So they do get, they do get to the World Cup. Lewandowski will be playing at the World Cup for the second time. I don't hold out much hope that they're going to do very much, to be honest. As I said previously, I think they need to beat Mexico in that opening game.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you assume everybody's going to beat Saudi Arabia, which I think is pretty fairly bankable, you've then got what do they both do to Argentina?
Yep.
And I really don't see Poland posing Argentina any problems. So I think they have to go all out to win that first game against Mexico if they're going to have any chance.
This is one of the situations where, and this is why I like to look at the fixtures in a group from the perspective of each team, because I think it offers a different narrative each time. They are in an unfortunate position. Mexico, we talked about, almost have that safety net of playing Saudi Arabia last if things don't go too well against either Argentina or Poland or both. Whereas Poland do not have that safety net. They are the complete opposite situation. They open with one of the toughest matches in the group. They close with perhaps the toughest match in the group. And it almost makes the Saudi Arabia match in the middle, obviously if they don't win it, then the Argentina match is going to be even more of a dead rubber than already was. But you could see a situation where they come out of the group with only 3 points and they're not in a position to complain about their performances because they've come up against two great teams. I would argue this for me, and maybe it's the insular way I'm looking at it, considering the way that we do these videos, and you get very invested in a certain group when you're doing videos in sequence like this. But it's possibly the toughest group in the World Cup that they could have been drawn into. I mean, to be drawn with Mexico and Argentina in your group is really, really unfortunate.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia is the redeeming one there, because that's one they'll feel comfortable with. But no, Mexico, like you said, Mexico are that team that nobody fancies them to win the tournament, but nobody wants to play them either. And Argentina, as we both agree, one of the best teams at the tournament. But let's just play out a wee scenario here, right? Let's say Poland lose that first game to Mexico, right?
Okay.
But then in the next round, they duly go out and gub Saudi Arabia. But then Argentina do the same thing to Mexico. So Argentina would have 6 points by that point.
Yeah.
Mexico and Poland would have 3 each. But obviously Mexico have the safety net of playing Saudi last. However, because Argentina have already beaten Mexico, they cannot finish second in the group, no matter how many goals Mexico put past Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
So there's a potential there that they might field a weakened team in that final game, which might give Poland a chance to steal something.
It's an interesting thing to bring up, because there are so many situations, there are so few opportunities at a World Cup to field what one might consider a weakened team, because obviously you've only got 3 matches in the group stage, and then you're straight into knockout football where you're going to take no chances in any game. Very often that third game is where teams will take that chance to rest players. And you look at that there, they've got basically in 8 days, they've got 3 matches to play. They will probably have to rest some players, Argentina, if they get the 6 points. So I don't think it's beyond comprehension that they might do that. Where you might struggle there is Poland having to work as hard as they will have to do in that opening match against Mexico, potentially they might take their chances and field a slightly weakened team against Saudi Arabia. Who knows? Thinking that an opportunity to qualify against a weakened Argentina is where they're going to put all their eggs in that particular basket. But it's an interesting thing that you point out, because again, while you're considering things from Poland's point of view, how their World Cup goes is very much dictated by how Argentina and Mexico face off against each other in the other fixtures.
Yeah. The crucial thing for Poland, to keep themselves in the tournament, they need to not lose that first match to Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
To give themselves a good platform to qualify, they need to win it. If they win that first game, they are the favourites to qualify behind Argentina.
Absolutely. Because as much as I think Mexico are a tricky team, I still think Argentina have more than enough to overcome them.
Oh, absolutely. Aye.
So actually, if Poland can pull that 3 points out the bag in that opening match, like you say, Mexico are almost restricted to 3 points before you even consider, the outcome of the rest of the group. So that is, you said it during the Mexico preview, but that Mexico-Poland match, I am going to be doing everything I can to make sure I can watch that game, because it's going to be fascinating. And, bearing in mind Argentina will probably be doing a number on Saudi Arabia at the same time. You could be watching what is the most interesting narrative of the group in that opening match.
Yeah, because I think it is the only, I think it's the only bit of the group that's really competitive. Because I think it's obvious that Argentina are going to top the group, and I think it's obvious that Saudi Arabia are going to finish bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that middle that gives this group its potential for an interesting narrative.
Interesting. With that said, we'll have a wee look at the Poland squad. And again, I've been struggling to find the official lineup. So this is the one that touts itself as the official lineup. I can only apologise if it isn't, but we will have a look at it anyway.
I'm predicting a lot of W's, Z's, and K's. Here we go.
Absolutely. Recognisable names there for an ignorant Western football fan. Wojciech Szczesny, formerly of Arsenal, but obviously, long-time Juventus goalkeeper. You've got Matty Cash at Aston Villa. You've got, Zalewski at Roma. You've got Krojciak at Al Shab. You've got a number of really interesting names there, but I have to say, apart from maybe Milik, Lewandowski, Szczesny, not the most recognisable Polish squad that I've ever seen.
One to watch out for that might have flown under the radar a wee bit, but I think is quite a classy player, is Bereshevsky of Sampdoria. He's a defender, but he's very sort of
there.
Yeah. Very classy in his play. 30 years old, in his prime at the moment. But also one of the most experienced players in the squad. If you look at his number of caps, he's a good, and he's one to watch out for. I won't say an emerging talent because he's 30; it's as good as he's going to get. But he's one that a lot of people won't be aware of. But because I watch quite a bit of Serie A, I've seen him periodically, and he's impressed me.
Do you know, it's interesting that you say that. He's got 45 caps there, and like you say, that makes him one of the most experienced in the squad.
Yeah.
Robert Lewandowski is the only one there with over 100 caps. Is this lack of experience in this squad, do you think, going to cause an issue for them, or is it going to be a good thing for them that, there's no fear there?
To be honest, I mean, in the last World Cup, they came third in a group behind Colombia and Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going to be a similar story again, simply because the squad now is about as good as it was then. And I think the opposition is of a similar quality as it was then. I mean, you could argue that Mexico are quite a bit above Japan actually, but
Yeah.
That is, it's two very different styles of football, so it's hard to compare the two directly, especially when I don't remember the last time they played each other.
Yeah.
But I don't see any progress in the Polish team in the last 4 years. I don't see them going backwards at all, but I don't see anything to make me think this is a team that's going to step up and shock anybody. I think they're not cannon fodder, but they're not knockout stage worthy either. They're just in that kind of, those kind of teams that you always see at the World Cup but never do anything. Teams like Morocco, South Korea, Austria, teams that are quite often there, but usually are home by the second week,
Yeah. I'm just looking as well at the average age. It's such a weird makeup because they've got a relatively low number of average caps, and yet what appears on first glance to be quite a high average age. It's such a strange mix-up of players there. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes for them. That might, obviously, one of the factors there might be the fact that they have struggled to qualify for a lot of World Cups in the last 10 years, which will have limited their number of caps, obviously. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Bearing in mind, I don't think either of us are fancying them for getting out of the group. What's a successful World Cup for Poland coming out of the end of this one?
Keep it respectable against Argentina. Take something from the Mexico game and see off Saudi Arabia. And I think they would then come home probably in third place, but knowing that they gave a good account of themselves.
Mm-hmm. It's so strange that you say that, because based on what you've said there, potentially they could come away with a point from the World Cup and consider themselves to have had quite a good World Cup, or they could come away with 4 points and not qualify. It's going to be so strange to see what happens with them. To me, they're one of the most unpredictable elements of the World Cup. They could come out and they could have the firepower to blow a couple of teams away, or they could whimper out into nothing. So it'll be interesting to see.
I think the problem is that Lewandowski is just that much. He's not just a cut above. He is like 8 or 9 levels above the rest of that team, and that's the problem. Is that it must be frustrating for Lewandowski because he's not going to get the service that he's used to getting at his club team.
Yeah.
And that is going to be, for a guy of his quality, and especially as he's getting on in years, he's 34 now, he needs good service because he doesn't have the pace anymore to create the chances himself.
Yeah.
So, it's a real shame that we're probably never going to see Lewandowski in a World Cup knockout match. It really is, but I think that's just the inevitable outcome of this, unfortunately.
That's the nature of the game, unfortunately. Many great players before him never even got to the tournament, never mind getting to a group knockout stage. He will have what I presume is his World Cup swan song this year, and many Poles will be hoping that it's one that can do him justice. We shall see. Liam, thank you very much for joining me. That rounds up Group C. We now have videos for Group A, B, and C on the channel. If you haven't seen those, then make sure and go back and watch them. We are previewing every single team in the run-up to this World Cup, and a little bit into it, thanks to some technical issues and our own stupidity. But we will leave it there. Actually, I'm throwing Liam under the bus there. It wasn't his own stupidity; it was mine. But we'll
it was my stupidity for not checking up on your stupidity. So we're both to blame, all right? It's not about blame, but for argument's sake, I'm just going to say it was your fault, okay?
Excellent. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much, and make sure to join us in the coming days for Group D.
Thank you. See you then.
Cheers.